The question that stopped the city was almost asleep when the man in the tailored suit finally broke. Neon light spilled across the sidewalk, glinting off an expensive watch that no longer meant anything. His shoulders folded inward, breath catching, composure unraveling in quiet, humiliating waves. This was a man who negotiated mergers without blinking, who spoke in rooms where decisions moved markets. Yet here, alone beneath flickering street lamps, he was losing a battle no amount of money could touch. People passed without stopping. A couple slowed, then kept walking. A rideshare idled, then pulled away. No one expected vulnerability from someone dressed like power. Wealth made pain inconvenient, something to be handled privately. Somewhere higher up, somewhere hidden. He pressed his palms to his face, as if trying to hold himself together. Tears slipped through anyway. Not the dramatic kind, the exhausted kind. The kind that comes when the last excuse collapses. From the edge of the sidewalk, a boy watched. He was thin, jacket too light for the night, shoes worn into soft surrender. He had learned how to stand still enough to disappear. Most nights, invisibility kept him safe. Tonight, something else pulled at him. He recognized the sound of quiet breaking. He had heard it before. He lived inside it. The distance between them was only a few steps, but it felt like a border no one crossed. The rules were clear. People like him did not approach people like that. Especially not when the world expected rejection, or silence. The boy stepped forward anyway. His voice was small, steady, unarmed. 5 words, barely louder than the traffic behind them, landed heavier than any accusation. Can I hug you? Time slowed. Conversations nearby thinned into static. A woman across the street froze mid-step. A man near the corner lifted his phone, then lowered it again, unsure. Everyone understood the risk in that question. It crossed class, fear, and pride in a single breath. It asked for permission where none was owed. It offered comfort where none was expected. The millionaire looked up and his eyes flickered shock, instinct, hesitation. The reflex to protect status. The reflex to pull away. Years of training screamed that this was wrong, unsafe, inappropriate. The boy waited. He did not move closer. He did not explain himself. He simply stood there, open hands at his sides. Dignity intact, bracing for refusal. The city held its breath. In that suspended second, the street felt exposed like a confession left unfinished. The air tightened with judgment and hope tangled together. This was the moment people later argued about, the instant they claimed would have gone differently if fear had won. It was where kindness usually died quietly, smothered by caution, rehearsed excuses, and the invisible walls everyone pretended were natural. Whatever happened next would reveal which story this city told itself about who deserved tenderness, and whether empathy was still allowed to cross lines drawn by money and survival. Or night, but before anyone could react, before the moment could retreat into awkward nothingness, the man made a choice that would echo far beyond that sidewalk. A man who had everything except peace. He had built his life the way people are taught to admire. From a rented desk and borrowed confidence, he learned how to turn risk into leverage and leverage into power. Years blurred into deals, signatures, handshakes that came with cameras and applause. His name became a symbol. His face appeared on panels and magazine covers, praised as proof that discipline and intelligence always win in public. He smiled easily. He spoke about innovation, responsibility, opportunity. He donated to causes that looked good on stages and annual reports. Crowds rose when he entered rooms. People leaned forward when he spoke. Applause followed him like a shadow, loud enough to drown out doubt, but applause does not follow you home. At night, the penthouse was silent, too clean, too large. Glass walls reflected a man he barely recognized, standing alone above a city that felt impossibly far away. No laughter echoed there. No warmth lingered in the corners. The quiet pressed down until even success felt like accusation. The collapse had started quietly, the way real failures do. A trusted partner chose profit over loyalty, selling secrets, dressed up as strategy. Lawyers spoke in calm voices while erasing years of work with careful language. Numbers still looked impressive, but something essential had cracked. He had compromised once to save a deal, then again to protect an image, telling himself it was temporary, necessary, harmless. Then came the loss he could not frame as business. A relationship strained by absence finally gave up trying. Conversations turned brittle, then stopped. Messages went unanswered. Love did not survive spreadsheets and late flights. He told himself this was the cost of greatness, until the cost was all that remained. Control had always been his armor. In boardrooms, he dictated outcomes. He decided who stayed, who left, who mattered. His voice never shook there. He was decisive, respected, untouchable. But control is fragile when it has no one left to protect. The night he broke, the city below celebrated something he had funded but would never attend. Fireworks reflected in his windows like distant applause, mocking. In their beauty, he loosened his tie, poured a drink he didn't finish, and felt the weight of years press inward. The story he had told himself no longer held. By the time he stepped onto the sidewalk, the armor was gone. There was no audience to impress, no role to perform. Just a man hollowed by success, realizing too late that wealth had insulated him from connection, not pain. He remembered the first promises he made to himself, the quiet vows about integrity and balance that once felt unbreakable. Somewhere along the climb, those promises softened. Every compromise came with justification, every delay with an excuse. He told himself he would slow down after the next quarter, reconnect after the next win, breathe after the next summit. The future became a convenient storage place for responsibility. Friends turned into contacts, meals became meetings, even rest felt unearned, something to schedule later. The higher he rose, the fewer people spoke to him without needing something, and the less often anyone challenged him. Isolation arrived disguised as respect. When doubts surfaced, he buried them under productivity, mistaking motion for meaning. Success kept rewarding the version of him that felt least alive. By the time the doubts grew louder than the praise, he no longer trusted himself to listen. That night, standing above the city, he finally understood that the life he had mastered was not the life he wanted, and the emptiness he feared was no longer avoidable. It was the first time success felt heavier than failure, and the first time he admitted he was tired of pretending to himself alone. He did not know it yet, but this vulnerability had been waiting for a collision, because while he was losing everything inside, someone else had already lost everything outside. The choice money couldn't buy the next morning. The world waited for a statement, but none came. No press release, no apology tour, no polished explanation, drafted by lawyers. The moment that had gone viral was left untouched, unclaimed, unbranded. People expected strategy, damage control, a carefully managed act of generosity. Instead, the millionaire did the one thing money could not outsource. He went back to the street alone. No cameras, no assistants, no agenda, just intention, heavy and unfamiliar. He searched the corners he had learned to ignore his entire life. This time, he was not looking down. He was looking for that boy. When he found the boy, there was no speech waiting to be delivered, no promises wrapped in conditions or gratitude. He asked where the boy slept, what he needed, what he feared. Then he listened. Help arrived quietly, the way respect should. A warm place without ownership. Food without cameras. Protection that did not demand obedience. The boy was not rescued, he was consulted. When questions came, the boy answered on his own terms. He said yes to help and no to exposure. For the first time, power leaned instead of loomed. The millionaire followed. He did not lead away. Something subtle shifted in that exchange. Something no contract could capture. The boy remained himself, wary, proud, unbroken. The man felt smaller and lighter at once. Money stayed in his pocket, where it finally belonged. What mattered was presence. Trust moved first, slowly, carefully. This was not charity, it was recognition. The city would argue later about intentions and optics. But in that moment, dignity set the rules, help followed without applause, control loosened its grip. A different kind of strength took shape, one built on restraint, one that could not be bought. And it changed everything between them quietly. Word of the choice spread. Without a press conference, people sensed the difference. This was not a transaction. It was a line crossed and not erased. The boy walked forward with boundaries intact. The man followed with humility he had never practiced. Observers searched for spectacle and found none. What remained was harder to dismiss, a reminder that dignity leads and resources should listen. The true shift was invisible but permanent, and it prepared the world for what came next. Because the real word of the choice spread without a press conference. People sensed the difference. This was not a transaction. It was a line crossed and not erased. The boy walked forward with boundaries intact. The man followed with humility he had never practiced. Observers searched for spectacle and found none. What remained was harder to dismiss, a reminder that dignity leads and resources should listen. The true shift was invisible but permanent, and it prepared the world for what came next. Because the real impact was never about what he gave. It was about what everyone learned. By watching closely together, the lesson that outlived the moments at Huck did not solve homelessness. It did not rewrite policy, erase inequality, or undo decades of neglect built into streets and systems. The city woke up the next day unchanged, people still sleeping outside, power still unevenly distributed. But something had been exposed, and exposure is dangerous to comfortable lies. What people saw was not generosity. It was recognition, a reminder that dignity is not a reward for success and suffering is not proof of failure. The boy did not need saving to be worthy of care. The man did not need absolution to choose humility. In that brief crossing of lives, the illusion that status defines humanity cracked. Money can build walls, fund speeches, soften consequences. It cannot replace presence. It cannot manufacture respect. That night proved what many spend lifetimes avoiding. Humanity does not require permission, and empathy does not wait for credentials. The moment outlived the cameras because it asked a question of everyone watching. Who do you look past? Who have you trained yourself not to see? Power answers those questions every day. Quietly, it lingered long after the streetlights dimmed there. Sometimes the richest thing a person can offer is to finally be human.